Hi guys, this is Jason on the coin. I'm here with the Xiaomi Mi A3 for a review. Back when I did the unboxing, I called it the killer for the Samsung Galaxy A50 and the Huawei P30 Lite. Now we're back with the review, and the conclusion, is it a killer or not, you're going to find out over the next minutes. We have the beautiful blue version here, and the price tag should be around $280. We have the 4GB RAM, 64GB storage version, and this is a handset that's still pretty fresh. It was launched in July 2019 and it's got a Snapdragon 665 CPU, triple camera, and a clean and stock Android One. Well, so let's take care of the design first. So aside from this blue hue, you can also get the phone in gray or white. It's got glass at the back, glass at the front, and even though it seems glossy on the sides, there should be a metal frame in there. It measures 8.5mm in thickness and weighs a pretty hefty 173.8 grams. It's pretty comfy to use with a single hand on account of being pretty narrow, I'd say, and at the same time it's got good ergonomics and it's not slippery. You can easily access the buttons that offer good feedback, and it looks pretty premium. If you look at it from afar, it resembles the Xiaomi Mi A9 a little bit. The backside may draw some fingerprints. It's got a pretty big chin, and also there is the teardrop notch at the top, which doesn't quite bother me. Now on the display front, this is probably the most controversial feature of the phone. It's an HD screen in 2019. Still, it's a Super AMOLED, 6.01 inches, and it's 1560 over 720 pixels in resolution with, I would say, pretty large bezels. Now the viewing experience, I'm going to show it to you right here. We have a test video that we did with the aid of the Xperia 1. We actually took some very interesting shots, and this is what a video looks like on this screen. Let's tweak the resolution a little bit. Okay, it's auto 720p, just making sure, and here we go. So the main idea is the following: people may be discouraged by the HD resolution. However, I have asked multiple people to tell me if they're bothered by this phone's resolution or not, and guess what? They're not bothered when watching video, when playing games. They simply were not bothered by what they were seeing. So in case you want to purchase the phone and feel that you're a nitpicker or a curmudgeon, you should actually go ahead and see it for yourself, maybe in a showroom. You may be able to notice that it's HD and not Full HD if you really look closer in the text area, but in general in video and games, to be honest, did not notice that we're losing anything from Full HD. And other than that, I have to say that we got pretty solid brightness, pretty nice contrast, and wide viewing angles. Okay, and we also have some measurements here for the screen. This is the pixel arrangement, it's the pentile matrix variety. We also did a brightness test and achieved a top value of 484 lux units, which is better than the Samsung Galaxy A40 and A50 by a few lux, and also above the Huawei P30 Lite, still inferior to the Galaxy A70. So that's that in a nutshell, a pretty solid screen, and before you judge it, be sure to see it for yourself. Other specs include the Qualcomm Snapdragon 665, 4 gigs of RAM, 64 or 128 gigabytes of storage, UFS 2.1 and microSD. I did not notice any sort of lag. I played games on it and they work like a charm. You can play PUBG Mobile with ease, you can play Asphalt 9, and thanks to the clean software, once again, no lag. I'm going to keep things short. We have the benchmarks on hand, and this is how the phone performed in Antutu, the Xiaomi Mi A3. 139k points. It beats the Samsung Galaxy A9 2018 and the Huawei Mate 20 Lite, and that's all you have to remember. In general, it was slightly below the Galaxy A50 in most of these benchmarks. We did quite a few of them, as you can see here: Base Mark, GFX Bench, obviously Geekbench 4. You can see it here. This one actually beats the Galaxy A50 by a little bit. Anyways, close to the Galaxy A50, sometimes beating it, but definitely beating the Huawei Mate 20 Lite. We also did some temperature measurements to see if there is any compromise to achieve this performance, and we achieved 36.4 degrees Celsius when playing the game Riptide GP Renegade, you know, our typical test game, and when employing the intensive GFX bench, 35.8 degrees Celsius, so no overheating for sure. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the battery of the phone. The Xiaomi Mi A3 has a 4030 mAh battery, which sounds pretty impressive. We have a bunch of tests here. I'm going to start with the video playback. It's actually placed on the 11th spot from all the phones we've tested with 17 hours and 25 minutes. That's pretty impressive. It even beats the big shot Huawei P30 Pro and the Zenfone 6. Not bad. Also beats the Galaxy A50. Scores below the Asus Zenfone Max Pro M2. This is video playback, and in continuous usage, once again impressive. 6th spot. It's actually beating some battery phones. 14 hours and 31 minutes. It beats handsets like the Zenfone Max Pro M2, Galaxy A70 and Galaxy A50. It stays below the Zenfone 6, for example. The charging is, I would say, decent for a mid-ranger with 2 hours and 20 minutes. And now we move on to the acoustics. So on the acoustics front, things are rather simple. There's a singular speaker at the bottom right here, even though it looks like there's two of them. They're just for symmetry. And we got an equalizer, which is stock, 5 custom channels, bass boost, and all that. So the thing is that you will not cover the speaker in landscape, which is fine. The sound was pretty loud and clear. We have an okay bass, no distortion, and not a major vibration of the case, so there's that. I'm pretty happy with the results. Just a quick check of the results we achieved: 91 decibels when playing a typical acoustic sample, which is actually excellent. It's top 10 material. And when playing games and doing other multimedia stuff, 100.6 decibels. Once again, pretty impressive, and beating several phones like the Xiaomi Mi A2, Honor 8X and the Moto G7 Plus, still below the Motorola One, for example, and the Zenfone Max. And just so you know, we also have FM radio right here. And now we're off to the camera. There's a lot to say. I'm going to start with the front because it's easier. So 32 megapixel camera here. I guess it's very similar to the one from the Huawei P30 series. It's got 4-in-1 pixel combination. And on the back side, we have a surprise. I actually looked into it. And aside from the LED flash and the triple camera setup, well, the main 48 megapixel camera has a Sony sensor, not the cheap Samsung one, the Sony one. So 48 megapixel Sony sensor with f1.79 aperture, face detection autofocus. Then there is the secondary 8 megapixel ultra wide camera and a third 2 megapixel depth camera. There's the LED flash, and there's also AI technology here. So I guess I'm going to skip straight to the photo shots because the interface is a mixture of what Xiaomi is offering you and what the stock expectations would be. So let's go straight to the gallery. I won't drag this too long. It's very easy to compare this phone to the Huawei P30 Lite and also the Galaxy A50 because, well, they're pretty similar. Here we go. So the first thing that shocked me was the zoom. I started off with some regular shots. These are actually taken in succession, one regular shot, then HDR, and then AI to see what changes. And then we start with the zoom, and we keep zooming in, and I was actually impressed that we're doing this just digitally with no optical zoom. So that's one big thumbs up for the phone. It can handle its zoom. This is what also amazed me about the Huawei P30 Lite, which also had a pretty solid zoom. The HDR feels a bit excessive at times, and in general I was happy with the colors. The first third of the gallery feels a bit over-processed, if I'm being totally honest, and it's usually Samsung that does it, but then the camera came into its own and delivered crisp and crystal clear shots. So regular shot, ultra-wide shot. The ultra-wide shots are about, I would say, on par with the Galaxy A50 or the A40 rather, and you can see here that in spite of the torrid 30 degrees Celsius plus day, there is no overexposure like we saw with the Huawei P30 Lite and the Motorola One Vision. So it's already above them by simply not burning the image. One of the tricky bits is getting to do proper bokehs and proper close-ups of objects. It will take a while, but the results are, I would say, pretty decent. I played around with this puppy toy, and at some point we achieved a pretty believable bokeh with a very nice cutout around it. Okay, so selfies. We also did a bunch of those. I would say that they're decent. They're decent in clarity, color, and the skin texture. Not very happy with the way the eyes look. They actually remind me of the underwhelming eyes that we saw on the Galaxy A50 and which were inferior to the Huawei P30 Lite. So everything's okay, minus the eyes, unless you really focus properly, and then you can get satisfying eye experience. And by the way, the bokeh is not half bad, even though there may be weird cuts around your ears and headphones. So this is daytime capture, a few more colored shots here just to convince you that we're dealing with perfect clarity and color calibration. So in the end, I would say it beats the Huawei P30 Lite, beats Motorola One Vision, and it fights on equal terms with the Galaxy A50. Definitely beats the Redmi Note 7. And this is daytime. During the nighttime, we actually had a bit of a surprise. So we did our usual low light capture without any sort of expectations, and guess what? This is actually the best mid-range phone for nighttime capture we've seen so far. It shares the first spot with the Motorola One Vision. Both of them are the gold medalists of the low light capture in the mid-range department. It's very hard to tell which is better because they're actually excellent, both of them, even though this one kind of suffers when you're putting the wide-angle camera to work. Excellent zoom even at night, but when you activate the wide-angle camera, things get a bit too red for my taste. Otherwise, nice clarity, decent level of yellow, nice lighting, okay contrast, not many artifacts, and even this tricky logo was caught in a decent fashion for a mid-range phone. Once again, mid-range. Okay, so that's that. #1 mid-range phone in 2019 in low light capture, together with the Motorola One Vision. And then we get to the video capture, so let's see what happens there. As usual for a mid-range phone which can handle its own in the 4K department, if you stick to 4K, you're going to be very happy with the results. So let's start the videos. We did one where we tested the stabilization, which is actually not bad. Even though the image doesn't flicker badly, the exposure does. As you can see, it goes up and down, dimly lit or too lit, and that's basically the only drawback. There is no actual shakiness or flicker, but if you're shooting 4K, that may appear. Here we shot with the sun in front of us, and it's not half bad in clarity and colors. Okay, and here we actually have some more colors. Pretty nice focus, nice exposure, did not notice any problems, even though if I were to compare this with the photo shots, it's actually 15% below the quality that we got from the photo shots. And one thing I noticed is that oftentimes the camera feels like it's filming with a phone like that. It feels a bit tilted. I noticed this at day and during the night time. You can see it here. It's rather weird. I don't get why this tilt is happening. Pretty weird situation. It may be a bug. I saw it in 3 or 4 videos, but other than that, things are pretty okay. Okay, and decent during the daytime. I would put it on par with the Galaxy A50. Highly superior because it has the 4K and it actually looks pretty solid. Let's see the low light video. Okay, so I promised you a low light video, so here we go. Another one of those cases when I can see a slight tilt of the image. Anyways, I have to say that there's a bit of flicker going on here. The image is a bit too yellow for my taste, also grainy. Microphone was okay. It's about on par with the Galaxy A40 or Galaxy A50 and still pretty shaky. But for a mid-range phone, I would say tolerable. That's the word for it. I'm done with the camera. I would say it can beat the Huawei P30 Lite and the Motorola One Vision. It fights properly with the Galaxy A50 and slightly wins in the low light department compared to the other models. On the connectivity front, it's obviously a dual SIM phone with a hybrid slot. It's got FM radio, USB Type-C port at the bottom, and guess what? They even offered you this little infrared emitter at the top to control TV sets, set-top boxes, and so forth. Wi-Fi dual band, 4G LTE, Wi-Fi display, there's Bluetooth 5.0 in the mix, and an audio jack. GPS, GLONASS, and Beidou are part of the package. Now, I have to say that calls were pretty loud and clear, no objections here, and we also did several other tests. I'm talking about the, Wi-Fi and 4G. So let's see what came out of that. Basically, you should know that on Wi-Fi we got as high as 199 megapers in download and 26.1 megapers in upload, and on 4G was more modest, like 51.7 megapers in download and 67.9 megapers in upload. So those are the values we played with on the phone. Pretty decent for a mid-range phone, and now it's time to talk about the software. Obviously, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. After all, it's a typical clean and stock Android Pie experience, part of the Android One initiative. It means you are going to get the Android Q and R update just in time, 3 years of security updates. We got the stock experience which you'd see on a Pixel, on a Nokia, on a Motorola. So we got this Google home screen here. Keep the screen pressed and you got your clean and well-spaced widgets. Drag from the top here and you got your multitasking like this, and you press here for the split screen view. Do a full drag to get into the app drawer area. Swipe down for the quick settings and notifications with the green toggles. Not much to see here, and here we have the settings which are color coded and include the famous digital well-being, and for security's sake we have the fingerprint scanner embedded in the screen and also face unlock. And you saw me throughout the review actually going ahead and using the fingerprint unlock, which is not half bad for a mid-range phone. That's about it. There's Google Assistant, and I didn't notice any sort of bloatware here, just the standard apps, give or take a Xiaomi app or two. So folks, there you have it. This has been the full review of the Xiaomi Mi A3. Possibly the cure for the problems of the Mi A1 and Mi A2 camera. They suffered in the camera department. Finally, this one doesn't. But the screen is a pretty big compromise. On the pro side of the phone, I would have to say that the sexy design is a plus. Brightness is okay for the screen, okay performance, including in games, fantastic battery life, it could be a selling point in itself, clean OS, Android One and so forth, 4K video capture is nice, solid pictures, pretty surprising nighttime pictures if you ask me, and we also have a pretty loud experience when listening to music on this device. Those are the pros. On the cons, it's still a HD resolution phone, the bokeh takes a while to pull off, some of the selfies were underwhelming. The white capture is also a bit underwhelming, especially in the night time, and some of the videos felt a bit overexposed, and there's that weird inclination of the videos. As you can see, very few drawbacks, and in the end, if you hesitate here, it's all about the display, and I recommend you go ahead and see it for yourself in a store if possible to properly decide if you're going to get the phone or not. The screen is the only potential deal breaker here for you. For me, it's not. The camera is actually a pleasant surprise compared to the predecessors, so it gets my vote. I would pick it over the Huawei P30 Lite, I would pick it over the Motorola One Vision, and I would hesitate a bit before buying the Galaxy A50. That's it in a nutshell, is the Xiaomi phone that makes you hesitate in buying a Super AMOLED Samsung mid-range phone. You'll buy it for the fantastic 17-hour battery, and also for the 4K videos and the fact you can play PUBG on it. This has been it from gsn.com, the full review of the Xiaomi Mi A3. Bye bye.